Hello, ihr Lieben. This is Pranav from Language Pantheon, and in today's episode of German Ki Baat, we'll be looking at the structure of Goethe Certifikat B2. We'll be trying to figure out what is expected out of you at this level of the German language. Also, ohne weiteres legen wir los. Without further ado, let's start. So, liebe Lernerinnen, liebe Lerner, jetzt geht es um den Versuch, euch mit der Struktur der Prüfung Goethe Certifikat B2 vertraut zu machen. Like its predecessors, Goethe A1, A2 und B1, Goethe B2 also tests your level of German language based on 4 modules. Lesen, that's reading. Hören, that's listening. Sprechen, which is speaking. And finally, Schreiben, which is writing. So before we go into each of these modules in detail, let's have a general overview of the exam. Yeah. So you can either give the exam as a whole, or you can give the individual modules, which can be the case if someone, for example, cannot clear the exam in one go. So each of these 4 modules, Lesen, Hören, Schreiben, Sprechen, are of 100 marks each. And in each of these, one needs to score 60 minimum in order to pass that particular module. Okay. And if a person does not pass in all of the modules, they will get the certificate only of those modules in which they passed. And as for the remaining modules, they can appear again if they want to. Okay. Nun sehen wir mal, wie man diese Teile am besten begegnet. Okay. So first, to begin with, module Lesen. In Lesen, we'll start with Teil 1. In Teil 1, es gibt 4 Forumsbeiträge und dazu soll man 9 Aussagen zuordnen. There are 4 people who have kind of given a short post about something, their opinion about something, and there are 9 statements. Okay, 4 people and 9 statements. Each of these 4 people will be labeled as A, B, C, or D, and there will be 9 statements. You have to choose one person for each of these statements. Okay. So just to give you an example, the questions would look something like this. Zum Beispiel, welches Paar lebt nach einer Fernbeziehung inzwischen in einer gemeinsamen Wohnung? Which of the pair is living after a long distance relationship right now in a common flat? Okay. So even though you have just one person here, in the actual exam you'll have 4 people, out of which you have to choose. Now let's see what justifies that A is the answer for this. So he says, ich lebe jetzt seit etwa einem Jahr mit einer Freundin glücklich zusammen. Ich bin früher über ein Jahr lang jedes Wochenende zu ihr gefahren. So this line, that earlier every weekend he used to drive to her, tells that earlier they used to have a long distance relationship. And now he says jetzt, which is now, and inzwischen, meanwhile, is also a word which tells us about the present situation. So you see, at this level, they'll not be giving you the words as it is. They'll not, you should not expect the same word to be written. You should look out for the synonyms, for the paraphrasing. Yeah. He says, now I live since almost a year with my friend. So it tells us he lives together now. And the fact that he used to drive to her every weekend earlier tells us that it was a distant relationship. So that is not going to be direct. Yeah. You have to dive into it. You have to learn to read between the lines. Yeah. So this lets us conclude that the answer, the correct person, which is to be allocated to this question, should be Person A, nämlich Christoph. Yeah. So that was Teil 1. For Teil 1, the suggested time in which you should be able to solve the entire module is 18 minutes. Yeah. Again, this is just a suggestion. For the entirety of for the lesson, you get 65 minutes. It's entirely up to you how you use this time. You can give more or less time depending on how difficult or how easy you find a particular part. But the suggested time in which you should ideally be able to complete this is 18 minutes. Yeah. And for this part, you can score a maximum of 9 marks. Yeah. Dan gir som Teil 2. In Teil 2, which is considered the most challenging part, but I also believe the most interesting part is Teil 2. In einem Artikel mit 6 Lücken die passenden 6 von 8 Sätzen einfügen. So there will be an article before you. In that article, there will be 6 blanks given. Yeah. An article with 6 blanks. And on the next page, on the following page, you're going to have 8 sentences. 6 blanks, but 8 sentences to look out for. You have to choose the correct 6 sentences out of those 8 sentences to fit into those blanks. Yeah. The trick which I would suggest for this part is to look for Verweiswörter. Verweiswörter are the words which kind of need a reference to be able to work in a sentence. For example, suppose I come into a room and I say, okay, today we are going to learn that. Now one might not be able to understand that. What is this that referring to? But if I give you some context, such as yesterday we talked about definite articles, today we are going to learn that. Now this that is justified. Now you would know what is this that referring to. Similarly, the way how you're going to figure out which sentence fits in which blank is to figure out that word which would need some kind of reference in order to make sense. Yeah. So to give you an idea, I've pasted a short snippet out of this style. Okay. It says, die Wissenschaft ist schon lange daran interessiert, herauszufinden, worin Zwillinge sich gleichen und was sich unterscheidet. The science is already since a long time interested to find out in what aspect do twins are similar and what differentiates them. Now let's see which one can fit. Mehr als 100 Zwillingspaare wurden dazu von den Forschern verglichen. More than 100 pairs of twins were compared for that purpose. B. Sogar ihre Lebensläufe ähnelten sich erstaunlich. Even their life structures were similar to an astonishing degree. Then last, dabei untersucht man vor allem eineige Zwillinge. Under that one researches above all the monozygotic twins. Now, in this, our first step in order to deal with this is going to be to identify which words I cannot be putting here without giving any kind of previous context. Yeah. So let's find out. In the C1, it says dabei. Dabei would roughly translate to during that or for that purpose. So the question which arises would be, during what does one researches? During what does one assess? Yeah. So in each of these, you have to form questions. Also, wobei. And if you get the answer of this wobei, then that's the correct answer. Then B, sogar ihre Lebensläufe ähnelten sich erstaunlich. Even their life was very similar. The course of their life was very similar. So we use this word sogar only when we have also talked about something else being similar. For example, they like they read like the same books. They even like the same clothes. They even like the same restaurant. Yeah. So we cannot use sogar without also saying that something else is also similar. And in the first one, mehr als 100 Zwillingspaare wurden dazu von den Forschern verglichen. Now, dazu is our Verweiswort. Dazu is a word which cannot be used without giving any reference. Dazu would mean for that, for this purpose. So the question which arises is for what purpose? Another aspect I think is to pay attention to the tense. Okay. So let's see for the first one. Die Wissenschaft ist schon lange daran interessiert herauszufinden, worin Zwillinge sich gleichen und was sie unterscheidet. Now, you might think that R fits because they want to find out where they are similar, and that's why they were researched. But like I said, a huge factor here would play the tense. Here it says they are interested, and here it says they were compared. So the tense is not the same, which would make it not valid here. Whereas if you see this one, dabei untersucht man vor allem eineige Zwillinge. This one is also close because in order to find out something, man muss Untersuchungen durchführen. One has to kind of do researches. Yeah. So say would fit here. Yeah. Then let's see the 12th one. It says, sie stellten fest, dass elternlose Zwillinge, die in unterschiedlichen Pflegefamilien aufwuchsen und über Jahre getrennt lebten, ebenso viele Übereinstimmungen aufwiesen wie diejenigen, die gemeinsam groß wurden. Sie mochten die gleiche Musik oder liebten dieselben Bücher. Like I said, here they are saying that they found out that the parentless twins who lived in different families, they grew up, they lived separately, they had non-similarities, very similarities between them. Yeah, they had a lot of similarities between them. Like those who grew up together. They wanted the same music, they loved the same book, and Zogar would now make sense. Even their course of life was very similar. Okay, so for this, Bay would fit. Yeah, that was Teil 2 of Lesen. Then for Teil 3. Teil 3 is the most straightforward part, I believe. You have an article, and to that article, 6 MCQ based questions. So in Article 6, multiple choice Aufgaben lösen. You can score a maximum of 6 points in this part, and you get about 12 minutes for this. Okay. And since the answers are, for the most part, again, focus on the most part, not 100%, are in order. So for example, in this part, you find your first answer somewhere here, you're most likely to find the second one somewhere here. So it's always good to mark so that you know, for at least you have a little bit certainty that your answer is going to be afterwards. That's what I would suggest for this part. Yeah. Dann kommen wir zum Teil 4. In Teil 4, es gibt 7 Meinungsäußerungen und dazu muss man 6 Überschriften zuordnen. There are 7 opinions and 6 headings. And again, since there is one opinion more than there are the number of headings, one opinion would remain behind. Okay. So suggested time would be 12 minutes, and you can again score a maximum of 6 in this part. Yeah. Here again, I would suggest you to read the headings first and then go for it. Because in order to choose the correct heading, one always has to find the crux of the text. Yeah. Let's see the first one. Ausweichen auf andere Urlaubsform wegen Umweltbedenken. Ausweichen to deviating to another kind of vacation forms due to environmental concerns. Okay. So now we'll be searching the text to find out where they are talking about switching to another vacation form and where they are talking about environmental concerns. Yeah. It says, manche Leute wollen ihren Luxus in Urlaub, sie möchten sich aber auch politisch korrekt verhalten. Angeblich machen sie sich Gedanken über die ökologischen Folgen. So apparently, it says they're making thoughts to themselves about the ecological consequences. So that's another way of saying that they have concerns. Okay. And due to this, they are switching to another kind of vacation forms. Yeah. So for this, first one would be F. Similarly, we have to do for the rest. Okay. Now for Teil 5, which is the shortest part of the Lesen module, you can score a maximum of 3 points. Ja? In this, in einer Studienordnung oder ähnliches für 3 Abschnitte die passende Überschrift auswählen. This is actually pretty similar to the previous part, as you might have noticed. The difference is here they mostly talked about rules and regulations. Either in a hostel or in a seminar or in a swimming pool, they would mostly talk about rules and regulations. Yeah. Before that, they give you an index, Inhaltsverzeichnis. Okay. Here, I would request you, I would suggest you to go the other way around, because since there are just 3 questions and a lot of headings, it would be more wiser, it would be saving a lot more of your time if you see these first and then looking above first. So we have to read the text, kind of try to get the basic idea. It's very normal that you might not get every word, but you need to understand the crux of it. In the first one, they say die Arbeitsplätze auf der die zur Behandlung benötigten Instrumenten und Materialien zur Verfügung stehen, muss aufgeräumt, sauber und mit einem auf seine Wirksamkeit geprüften Desinfektionsmittel desinfiziert sein. Instrumentarien und Material zur Behandlung sind auf einer keimarmen oder sterilen Unterlage abzulegen. So here they are talking about aufräumen, sauber machen, desinfizieren. All the procedures. So let's look at the text. Are they talking about the Zielgruppen, the target group who they are targeting? No. Anforderung an das Personal. Are they demanding anything to the staff, to the Personal? Nein. C. Vorbereitung des Arbeitsplatzes vor dem Eingriff bzw. der Behandlung. Preparation of the workplace before the interference or the treatment. Yes. Das nennt man Oberbegriff. That's the umbrella term. Vorbereitung would be an umbrella term, and here they are defining that, they are being more specific about it by saying aufräumen, to clean up, making it clean, disinfecting. These could be referring to the procedures, to the preparations before a treatment or an interference or an experiment is done. So for this, I would choose C. Yeah, so that's how we deal with this part. Now, coming to Modul Hören. In Teil 1, you get 5 Alltagstexten und dazu eine Multiple-Choice-Aufgabe und eine Richtig-Falsch-Aufgabe. Okay, this part is played once and you can score a maximum of 10 points. Yeah. This looks kind of like this. There'll be 5 texts. Okay, there'll be 5 different situations, and each of these 5 would have 2 questions to that. One of those questions would be a Richtig-Falsch-Frage, a right-false question, and the other one would be an MCQ based question. Okay. For this one, the most common mistake which I observe in the class is that students focus a lot more on the Richtig-Falsch. Is still, I would say, you can deal with that. The problem comes in the MCQ based. Okay. The problem which I find might make you score less here would be that people focus too much on the options and forget to connect it to this. What do I mean by that? Here the option says Schweiz spielen die Dortmunder. First, the Dortmunder, a band perhaps, would play. The Jazz Angels spielen Jazz Rap. Dann das Hauptprogramm bilden Stücke des Jazzrap. Now, in the audio, what's most likely to happen is that you hear all of these three words. You might listen something regarding Dortmunder, about Jazz Angels, or maybe something about Stücke. Okay, but that's not what your focus should be on. You should also try and connect it with what's before it. Was bietet das Programm? What is the program offering? They might talk about the other options as well, but if it's not about what the program is offering, that cannot be an answer. So that would be my suggestion. Don't forget to connect it to the question which is given. Don't just focus on the options. All right. Dann Teil 2. In Teil 2, you have a radio interview und dazu 6 Multiple-Choice-Aufgaben. This part is played zweimal, also twice, and you can score a maximum of 6 points here. Okay. It's pretty straightforward. You hear an audio and you have 6 questions to that. Again, the most common mistake is focusing too much on the options and forgetting to connect it to what's given above. Okay. Dann zum Teil 3. In einem Radiogespräch mit mehreren Personen 6 Aussagen, 3 Sprechen zu hören. In this part, you have a radio conversation. There is one host and 2 guests. Okay. These statements are right by default. So here it's not about whether the statement is correct or not, rather about who is speaking that statement. The moderator, the host, or the one of the 2 guests. Okay. Here, it's pretty easy to differentiate between the masculine and the feminine voice. The problem comes in differentiating between 2 masculine voices or 2 feminine voices. That's what is the biggest problem which I feel students face. So for that, I would request you, and the voices are pretty similar, so it's not really your fault as well, right? So apart from the voice, one thing which can help you is to kind of follow the conversation. If the person is putting up a question, or if he addresses the guest, Frau Müller, Herr Müller, then you know for sure that, okay, this is the moderator, because only a moderator one is going to most likely ask the question. Or while addressing, they say the name of the other person. So if they are saying, for example, was denken Sie, Herr Müller? What do you think, Herr Müller? It means that they themselves are not Herr Müller. They themselves are not Mr. Müller. So that could be one trick which could help you here. Okay. So that would be my suggestions for this part. Finally, we come to Teil 4. In Teil 4 liest man zu einem Vortrag 8 Multiple-Choice-Aufgaben. To a speech, you have 8 MCQ-based questions. You listen this twice, and you can score a maximum of 8 points in this part as well. Okay. In this part, again, the challenge is not the audio itself, but the fact that it might be a bit longer and you need to be concentrated throughout. Okay. But since it's played twice, I would suggest for the first time, make your best guess, and in the second time, confirm that. Okay. And always highlight the keywords. Okay. Especially words such as the mistakes which happen in this part is that people confuse the degrees. For example, oft, often, and immer, always are not the same thing. Sometimes it might happen that the audio and the statement given in the questions are exactly the same, which might make you think that, okay, that's the answer. But a little word such as ich mache das immer, I do that always, und ich mache das oft, I do that often, you have to realize that these 2 things are not the same. So especially words like this, you have to mark. Okay. The second thing, of course, is the tense. The thing can be exactly same, but if the tense is different, that can make your answer go wrong. Yeah. So that was module Huron. Now for each of Lesen and Huron, as you notice, there are 30 questions in each of these. Okay. Your score in both Lesen and Huron is multiplied by 3.33, which gives you a score of out of 100. Okay. So a maximum you can score 100 if you answer 30 out of 30 questions correctly. And you need to get, as I said, 60 points at least. And in order to achieve 60 points at least out of 100 in both Lesen and Huron, you need to get 18 out of 30 questions correct at the very least. Okay. Now coming to Modul Schreiben. For Modul Schreiben bekommt man 75 Minuten. You get a total of 75 minutes. And again, it's entirely up to you how you use that time, for which part you use how much time. But it is suggested to use about 50 minutes for Teil 1 for part 1 and 25 minutes for Teil 2, part 2. Okay. In Teil 1 schreiben Sie einen Forumsbeitrag. You have to write a forum post. Okay. Let's look at the example. Yeah. Sie schreiben einen Forumsbeitrag zur Verschmutzung der Umwelt. For example, in this question, they're asking you to write an article on the pollution in the environment. Okay. And they ask you certain things to cover in that article. Nummer 1. Äußern Sie Ihre Meinung zu Plastikverpackung im Alltag. What's your opinion regarding plastic packagings in day-to-day life? Nennen Sie Gründe, warum Plastikverpackungen so verbreitet sind. Why is it so widespread? The reasons for that. Andere Möglichkeiten, Dinge im Alltag zu verpacken. Other possibilities to pack things in day-to-day life. Nennen Sie Vorteile der anderen Verpackung. Mention the advantages of the other kinds of packaging. Okay. Now, the thing is that these 4 points might change a little bit. So it's not fixed as it used to be in B1. So before you dive into writing the question or preparing the map for that, I would request you to kindly see what they're asking you first, because it's one of the criterias on which you are judged. Let's look at that. The criterias on which they judge your Schreiben is Nummer 1, Korrektheit, correctness. Correctness in terms of correct usages of connectors, correctness in sense of orthography, the spellings, and correctness in sense of Kommasetzung, the comma placements. Yeah. Then sprachliche Verknüpfung von Sätzen und Abschnitten. The connection, how sensibly you're connecting sentences and paragraph. Yeah. What do I mean by that? Let's say internet is useful and internet can save our time and internet is pretty famous. This on the one hand, and on the other hand, I'm saying nobody can deny that internet is useful. We should not forget to mention that it can save a lot of our time. Not only this, it can also help us in our school projects. And at the last, I want to highlight how important it is to be careful when you use internet. So you see the difference. On the one hand, I am continuously saying and on the other hand, I'm using connectors such as, not to forget this, I would like to highlight that, moreover. Okay. So this makes your language sound more fluent. Okay. Easy to read. Then the third thing on which they judge you is Erfüllungsgrad, the fulfillment degree. It means to what extent are you fulfilling what they have asked out of you. If they have asked you these things, die Meinung, Gründe, andere Möglichkeiten und Vorteile, the opinion, the reasons for something, other possibilities and advantages, to what extent are you able to fulfill that? To what extent are you addressing these points? Okay. You need to write at least 150 words and you can get a maximum of 60 points for this part. Yeah. And as mentioned before, you get 75 minutes for the whole thing, but suggested is that you should ideally be able to complete this part in 50 Minuten, in 50 minutes. Yeah. So that was Teil 1. Dann Teil 2. Schreiben Sie eine Nachricht. You have to write a message, mostly a formal letter. And here gelten dieselben Kriterien, the same criteria as Teil 1 für Checking, Korrektheit, Erfüllungsgrad und sprachliche Verknüpfung. The same criteria are valid here. And here you are supposed to write at least 100 words. And the suggested time is 25 minutes. And you can score a maximum of 40 here. Okay. Again, here they ask you, give you a certain situation and ask you to fulfill certain things, to include certain things in your Schreiben, in your writing. Sie machen gerade ein Praktikum zum Beispiel bei einer deutschen Firma. Sie haben derzeit so viel zu tun, dass ihre Arbeit nicht mehr schaffen. Schreiben Sie eine Nachricht an Ihren Vorgesetzten, Herr Ebert. Bitten Sie um Verständnis, machen Sie einen Vorschlag, beschreiben Sie, womit Sie beschäftigt sind und zeigen Sie Verständnis. So they ask you for certain things, request them for the understanding, make a suggestion, describe with what you are busy, show understanding for the work situation in the company. Okay, so you should be fulfilling all these things. Okay, so that was Schreiben. Now let's come to module Sprechen. The module Sprechen that lasts about 15 minutes for the entirety. In Teil 1 halten Sie einen kurzen Vortrag und anschließend reagieren Sie auf eine Frage. Okay? You have to have a small speech which will be about 4 minutes, and as soon as you are done, your partner would be asking you a question. Okay? And the same goes for you. When your partner is done with his or her presentation, you are supposed to ask him or her a question. The good thing is that you get to choose from 2 themes in this part. Okay, you get 2 themes and you have to choose the one with which you are the most confident, the one with about whom you feel that you can speak a lot more. Yeah, in total it will take 8 minutes for both of the candidates, and you get 32 for your own speech and 12 marks for asking a question and answering to the question which is asked to you. Okay, and it's divided into 3 parts: Einleitung, the introduction; Hauptteil, the main part; and Schluss, the ending. Now what I want you to notice, what I want you to keep in mind, that as opposed to B1, from level B2 they expect you to be a lot more natural. What do I mean by being natural is to avoid the usage of fixed phrases. Okay, they expect you to talk at almost a relative native fluency. Okay, so make sure that your words do not sound robotic. It should sound as natural as possible. Okay, and like in the previous examinations, here also you get 15 minutes for the preparation of expression, in which you can make a mind map, a rough idea. But again, you're not supposed to look at the paper while you speak. You can refer to it, but please understand the difference between reading and looking at it. Okay, so let's take this for example. We get 2 themes like is shown here: Finanzierung des Studiums und gesund Leben. In both of these, they're asking me a certain things. Beschreiben Sie mehrere Alternativen für Finanzierung des Studiums. Nennen Sie Vorteile und Nachteile und bewerten Sie diese. Und beschreiben Sie eine Möglichkeit genauer. Describe one of those possibilities in detail. First, I'll tell different alternatives for financing the study, the Vorteile and Nachteile of the alternatives which I have just talked about, and finally, one of those alternatives I would be describing in detail. Okay, and one more tip would be to notice what your partner says, because you at the end of their presentation are supposed to ask a question. Okay, so while your partner is speaking, you also need to pay attention. Yeah. Dann Teil 2. In Teil 2 führt man eine Diskussion. You have to carry a discussion. Okay. This durates 5 minutes, including both the candidates, and you can score 40 marks in this. Let's take this question, for example. Sollen Studierende ihre Professoren beurteilen? Should students be rating, judging their professors? Okay. So the themes would always be such that you can take a stand, as in whether you are in favor of it or against it. One common misconception due to which most students are worried, I feel like, is they think that it's a debate. Okay. Since you don't get to talk to your partner before the actual exam, you would not know whether your partner is in favor of the theme or against it. But you should not worry about that. Okay. Even if you end up having the same view on the topic, you can carry a discussion. The important point is that you address what they're saying. Since it's a discussion, it should look like a discussion, as in you should be reacting to what your partner just said. It should not look like two people waiting for their turn to speak. Yeah, whatever your partner says, you have to give a judgment about that. You have to react to that and then add a counter question or a counter statement. Okay. And one more important thing would be, regardless of whether you start with the same point of view or a different point of view, at the end of the speech, at the end of the discussion, both of you are supposed to reach a common agreement. It's not possible to end it with a compromise. You have to reach a common agreement. Okay. And it does not matter who wins. Okay. It's not a competition about that. The important thing is that you should show that you have a skill to carry out discussion for this part. Okay. So again, Nummer 1, tauschen Sie Ihren Standpunkt und Ihre Argumente aus. You have to, first of all, explain what is your point of view regarding this thing. You give your arguments about it. Reagieren Sie auf die Argumente Ihrer Gesprächspartnerin oder Ihres Gesprächspartners. You have to react to your partner says. Very important. And at the end, passen Sie am Ende zusammen. Sind Sie dafür oder dagegen? You have to summarize at the end. Are you in favor of it or against it? One good thing about this part is that you get rough points which you don't have to, but you can take for help. Zum Beispiel, Motivation nimmt zu oder ab. Motivation increases or decreases. Unterricht wird besser, schlechter. The classrooms becomes better or worse. Fairness is gegeben, fairness is given. Oder Beurteilung bleibt anonym, or the judgment remains anonymous. Okay, they give you a couple of points which you can use to form the basis of your discussion. Okay, so if you're not getting anything else regarding the theme, you can use these points. Okay, you are definitely allowed to also mention other issues, other aspects of the topic, but this is there to just give you a little nudge into the discussion. Okay, so my suggestion would be do look for these points as well. They might be a big help for you. Yeah. One important thing to note about expression is that there is 16 marks, 16 Punkte, besonders für Aussprache und Intonation. Just for your pronunciation and your intonation, you get 16 marks. Out of the entirety of 100 marks, you get 16 marks just for your pronunciation. All right. So that was the overview of the 4 modules of Goethe Zertifikat B2. I hope you understood the format. Yeah. Vielen Dank. I sincerely hope you found that helpful. If you have any further queries regarding Goethe Zertifikat B2, you can leave your questions down below in the comments and we'd be happy to help you further. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and please hit the bell icon so whenever we upload a video, you get a notification. That's it in today's episode of German Ki Baat. Stay tuned. Vielen Dank.